All right, what is going on? Welcome back to the Start the Rebuild podcast, otherwise known as the SCR podcast. Said that backwards. I'm your host, Tim Fournier, alongside reoccurring guest, Zach Patrone.
What's going on, Tim? How we doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm great. It's the best time of year. I think we got NBA playoffs, we got NHL playoffs, the NFL draft is coming up.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a golf fan, we got the majors coming up. It's just a great time of year for sports, and so we're heading into this draft. So I'm getting pretty excited. I don't know about you.
Hell yeah. The draft is one of my absolute favorite things every year. It's like it for me, it's like Christmas. Like I study this stuff so much and I get so excited for it. So what we're gonna do today is Zach has actually gone through and made an entire mock draft, trades included. We're kind of using this background here just so we can have a visual for it if you're watching it on YouTube. But so we're gonna go through Zach's. I haven't seen it at all, and we're gonna get my live reactions to it. We're gonna go over Zach's kind of takes, and we're gonna talk about it. You ready?
I'm ready. Let's
All
go.
right. Okay. Actually, we gotta say this. You did this mock draft on not what you think is gonna happen, but what you would do with each pick, correct?
Correct. Minus, I think maybe one pick, and I'll get to that. And I
Yeah.
think
You
because of
can
that,
explain it as you go.
right. So I'm just gonna get right down to it. On the clock, Chicago Bears. Play the music. I have the Chicago Bears in a shocking turn of
Dun,
events,
dun, dun,
taking Caleb
dun.
Williams,
There
first
we go.
overall, USC. You know, I've seen the kid play a few times. Obviously, we've all watched him. You see the special. The really only drawbacks of the kid is, you know, sometimes he'll rely too heavily on the special. He'll take too much time in the pocket, wait for the play to develop too long, use his legs maybe sometimes when he shouldn't need to. But I mean, the kid's got a hell of an arm, crazy accurate, great mobility. I mean, when you're being compared to Mahomes, you know, as a prospect coming out of college, there's not much that can go wrong there. Tim, if you have any analysis there.
I mean, I think he's far and away the best quarterback in the class. I think he is in that special tier. I was a little worried there because we said it was what you would do. And I know kind of throughout the season, you weren't the biggest fan of Caleb Williams, but I
Mm-hmm.
see that you are taking him number one.
I'm taking him number one overall.
Change? Did you kind of just like listen to more people talk about him? What do you think?
You know, the more I think about it, you know, actually a lot after his Heisman year, you know, going into this year, it's just seemed as if, you know, I always kind of got the notion that his arm strength wasn't on the level of, you know, an Andrew Luck or Trevor Lawrence, other guys who come out as a clear cut number one. But after this year, I think he's proved that his weaknesses are just, you know, far and away better than really any other quarterback in this draft. I mean, people are, you know, looking at Drake May and seeing him maybe fall down the draft board. Jaden Daniels is creeping up the draft board, but I still think Caleb Williams is the best quarterback. I think the Bears, obviously, they have the quarterback spot vacant on the roster. They're taking the quarterback. We all know that. And, you know, I think Caleb Williams is the guy. Now, will he succeed in Chicago? We've seen lots of Bears quarterbacks, you know, underwhelm. Um, you know, especially as of recently, it's going to take a lot for him to. It's not going to take much for him to become the greatest Bears quarterback of all time. I don't think the Bears have had a quarterback though for 4,000 yards in a season. But I do think that, you know, they've surrounded him with a lot of great weapons. And we'll see. I mean, hopefully he doesn't, you know, turn over a bunch of coaches. Hopefully he can have, you know, Matt Eberflus throughout his as long as he needs. I don't know. I think that he's the guy. Now, will he succeed? We're gonna find out pretty soon. I think so.
Gotcha. Very quick.
And
Very
with
quick. If
yes,
you like maybe weren't the biggest Caleb guy early on, would you, if you were the GM of the Bears, would you have kept Fields and used this pick?
you know, I would have. That's a great question. You know, it really is. But when you get the first pick in the draft and there's a talent coming out like this, you got moving off someone like Fields is tough with his upside, but you know, if you see a team beneath you, you pass on Caleb and someone else takes him, or you trade that pick away and someone else takes him, you know, and then he goes on to succeed, that could set your franchise back a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And especially someone like Justin Fields, who really hasn't shown much promise in terms of winning, it'd be tough to pass on a guy like this regardless. You know, I can understand keeping Justin Fields on the roster, but I think Justin Fields. I think they made the right move for him. I think he's been able to compete where he is, and I think they've done a good job. I really do. So we'll see. Again, like I said, we'll see how he fares. But I think regardless, the Bears are going to make the right decision and take Caleb Williams.
I agree. So what are the Commanders doing at 2? New ownership, first pick.
I had to think about this one. I really did, and I think a lot of the consensus was before that Drake May's the guy. But a lot of the recent trends have said, the Heisman winner Jayden Daniels. So I'm taking Jayden Daniels, and I'll explain why. I think for his type of player, we've seen Cliff Kingsbury, the new Commanders offensive coordinator, really succeed with quarterbacks of that type. Obviously, Kyler Murray, is just to name one. And Cliff Kingsbury, if I'm not mistaken, coached Patrick Mahomes in college. So he's used to that type of player, able to move around a little bit. And, Jayden Daniels is a sneaky, great arm. He's got a great arm. But again, like the whole Caleb Williams thing, will he be able to succeed? There's reports coming out that he doesn't really want to go to Washington. Will this be an Eli Manning, John Elway type of thing? I don't think so. I don't think that happens nowadays. Will he be happy there? We'll see. Can he stay healthy? We'll see. It's going to be interesting. I think it is going to be interesting that the Commanders gave up the second most sacks in the NFL last year, just behind the Giants. And we'll see if they can protect him. But I think he's the guy. I think with his athleticism, again, it's, Drake May might have a little more upside. He's a little more raw, but I think Jayden Daniels is the guy. And I think that's who they're going to go with for sure. And that's the one where I think, he could either boom or he could bust. And I think out of all the quarterbacks, he's going to be the biggest boom or bust guy that we'll see.
So do you definitely have Daniels over May?
I do. And
I don't think you're crazy for that at
I
all.
know.
I
honestly,
flip-flopped on the two the entire process.
So have I. And I just, for whatever reason, I think people are so high in Jayden Daniels. And this is what I was referring to where I said, this is what I think the Commanders are going to do. Because you can make an argument for Drake May as well here, a good argument. But at the end of the day, I think it will be Jayden Daniels. I think the Commanders love Jayden Daniels. I think Cliff Kingsbury likes that type of quarterback. And that's what I think they're going to go with. So we'll see, but that's my pick.
I think gun to my head, like I'm on the clock, I'm taking May over Daniels, but I've kind of been of the opinion as of late that I think Daniels is going to be better day one. I think with the mobility and things you can build around the run game, he's going to have a higher floor right away. But if you're using a top 2 pick on a quarterback, I don't think he's ever going to really return that. But I think May could.
That's a good point.
I don't have a problem with it at all. Because I think Daniels is a good player. I see him a lot like a Justin Fields, where it's going to take some time. I think with the receivers in Washington, and if they could build an O-line, if Justin Fields came into the league and had a better surrounding situation for his first 2 years, he could have turned out better in Chicago. And it wasn't until year 3 that he had like a little bit of help. And even then he got hurt and it was and then they had the number 1 pick and they obviously moved on. So I feel like Jayden Daniels is really similar to Justin Fields. He just is getting a clean slate and hopefully they can help him out a little bit more.
Totally agree. And, I could see this, like you said, I can see this going both ways. There's, people say he's similar traits to Lamar Jackson. He could end up like, RG3 for all we know. So it could go both ways, but like you said, I think his floor right now is a little higher than Drake May. So that's what I'm going with. That's what I think they're going to go with. And I'm going to stick with that.
All right. We probably got to move a little quicker on these picks just because there's 32, obviously. And
there definitely is. And we can cut it short. We can only do half. We can go as we go, but I did
we can kind of just speed these up too. But
cool.
All right, let's do it. What are the Patriots doing? Trading back or picking a player?
Patriots are trading back. The Patriots have said for the last couple of weeks now that they've been fielding calls. So a team that really wants to get back up into that top 10, they really want a quarterback, is the Minnesota Vikings. So I have the Minnesota Vikings trading up, swapping spots in the first round with New England. Obviously, there's more trade details that I'm obviously not going to get into. But I have the Minnesota Vikings taking Drake May.
So
I think.
let me get this quick though. So the trade, I assume the Patriots are getting 11-23.
Mhm.
So when you made the rest of the picks for the first round, the Patriots are 11 and 23.
Yep. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
we don't have to figure out the rest, but the Patriots would probably have to give up like, or the Vikings would probably have to give up like a third and fifth next year or something like that.
Mhm.
But we're only doing the first round, so that's all we really need.
Mhm. Yeah. So I think, and I think I've thought about this a lot. I think if you with the weapons that the Vikings have, I mean, it's so this could be a situation where we see, and obviously this is completely different because when you look at Houston last year, we didn't see that as a team that has all these weapons, and they kind of came out of nowhere. But Minnesota has those weapons. Minnesota has two great receivers. They have a hell of a veteran running back. They got to work, and rebuild that defense a little bit. But they got a solid offensive line. I think they got a really great coach, great offensive mind, and I think you throw Drake May in the equation. I think by Thanksgiving he's going to be getting his foot under him a little bit better, and I think he's going to be a great pick there. And I think that this is a team to watch next year, maybe to win the division, and maybe just to go on, make the playoffs, and have a deep run in the playoffs. If Drake May comes out, and he's got a ton of upside. His comp is Justin Herbert, and if you're being compared to that in terms of arm strength, overall athleticism, that's a good thing. I think he fits really well into this offense, and I think this could be a good team. And I think this is going to be a good pick if it happens. We'll see.
I agree. I'd love it. If I'm a quarterback in this draft, I'm doing everything in my power with my agent to get me to Minnesota. Like you said, good offensive line, two great receivers, great tight end, offensive mind, former quarterback at head coach. Um, yeah, that would be, I think, a home run for the Vikings.
So we're going to go with that. And then number 4, pretty easy here. Cardinals stay put. They take pretty much at this point they're going to take Marvin Harrison. Go for it. You can click draft. They have essentially they have the number 1 pick in the draft, unless the Patriots picks Marvin Harrison. Some say they might. I think the Cardinals see this as they have the first pick in the draft. They don't need a quarterback, so why don't you just go out and get the best player? I don't see them trading down. I think they're going to take Marvin Harrison. He's a game changer. He's one of the best receivers to come out of the draft in my life. He just pops off the screen. When you watch him play at Ohio State, he just looks like a pro already. And I just think that with his speed, he's tall too. I never really knew until the combine how that he's pretty tall. He's 6'4". He's an athlete, and this is going to be a home run pick, and he's going to be a great player right off the get go, in my opinion.
Yeah, not much to say about that. It's great when your biggest need coincides with getting arguably the best player in the draft, and he falls.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
What about the Chargers?
Chargers trade down, and the Chargers trade down with the New York Jets. Jets trade back up in the top 5. I think, obviously, their O-line hasn't been great. They've given up a ton of sacks as of recent history. Tim, if I were to ask you how many receiving touchdowns the New York Jets scored last year, what would you say?
Receiving touchdowns.
Running backs, anything. Receiver, tight end.
13.
11.
11.
They had 11 receiving touchdowns last year. So I have the Jets trading up. They're taking Malik Nabers out of LSU. I think that he's another game changer. I think if it wasn't for Marvin Harrison, he would be the best receiver in this draft, obviously. Say what you want about Rome Odunze. I just think that Malik Nabers is that guy. I see a lot of Odell Beckham in him. I know, obviously, the LSU connection. But I think he's a game wrecker. And I think, honestly, at this point in Rodgers' career, they've rebuilt their offensive line. They've done a great job of that this offseason. I think their number 1 priority is to get him a new target. I think that, obviously a lot of that has to do with Zach Wilson having 11 touchdowns last year, but I think Malik Nabers is a game changer. Putting him next to Garrett Wilson, I think that's a great duo, and I think that's going to really enhance this offense.
Honestly, that's not what I was expecting at all, but I really like that. There's been some rumors of the Jets wanting to move up for a receiver, and the Jets are going all in the next year, maybe 2, obviously with Rodgers and that defense, and that's kind of the one thing they're missing. I think if they stay at 10, they're most likely there's probably an 85% chance they miss out on the top 3 receivers. And there's a chance, the Giants and Titans could be looking at those players. So they probably have to get up all the way to 5 if they want to make sure they got one. So I honestly, that's not something I've been really thinking about, but I really like that. Just the Jets have to go all in, and here they are.
Hmm. Just seems like a very Jets thing to do. So
Yeah,
we'll
I
see.
mean, at this
Um,
point, like with the Rodgers stuff, they're kind of selling the future for the next year or two, but you kind of have to. So
mhm,
I actually love that.
mhm. Yeah, we'll see.
It'd be crazy
So going
because
on
they
to
have to
number,
outbid to move up to there. I mean, the Vikings already traded up, so I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I like it. I like it.
we'll stick with that. So number 6, New York Giants. If this happens in the real draft, Tim, I think that would be one of the coolest things I'd ever seen. To go quarterback, 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 wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver. I have the Giants taking Rome Odunze. They just have no talent. I mean, no talent. You know,
Yeah,
they got Jalen Hyatt, the kid out of Tennessee. Great kid. I mean, great, speedy guy downfield, but they don't ever. I just don't see him taking quarterback. I don't know. I just don't see him. Daniel Jones, they just gave the guy over $40 million a year coming off an ACL. They brought in, Drew Lock. He's going to start the year, I think. I don't, people are saying this team's going to trade up even more and try to get one of those top 3 quarterbacks. I don't think so. I think they're going to stick with Daniel Jones, excuse me. And I think they're going to take Rome Dunze, great receiver out of Washington, just to spice up the offense a little bit.
yeah, I really like it. I think the one thing about the Daniel Jones contract that's kind of interesting is they have a pretty easy out after this upcoming year where there's not a lot of dead money if they were to cut him.
Mm-hmm.
So if they were to take a JJ McCarthy, he could redshirt a year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that being said, then he's just also walking into an offense with no perimeter talent.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other thing to look at would be O-line, which has been
Mm-hmm.
shaky, but they signed Jermaine Illuminor at right tackle and John Runyon at guard and got a new offensive line coach. So I think they've kind of patched that together. I think they'll be fine there. And I think this is kind of building the right ecosystem for whatever quarterback in the future is going to be there. So I like it.
I agree.
No
I
problem
think
with that at all.
I agree. I think this team, we don't, I think this team is going to be probably drafting again high. Next year isn't as good a quarterback draft. Who knows what the free agent market might look like? Maybe Daniel Jones is able to bounce back. You never know, but I think they're going to take the most skilled position player on the board, take Roman Dunze at 6. And moving on, not much analysis here. This is pretty straightforward. I have the Titans taking Joe Alt out of Notre Dame. That's kind of the consensus. The best offensive lineman there is in the draft. Not much to say there. The kid's an animal. And I think, they're going to trying to build as best they can around Will Levis, which I like, give the kid more time to throw and give him better opportunity to succeed. They obviously bring in Calvin Ridley. They're clearly, not going all in, but they're certainly trying to build around him. Obviously losing Derrick Henry sucks, but they got Tony Pollard, and I think they're putting some weapons around him. And I think Joe Alt is a great addition to that offensive line, protect him even more.
Yeah, they definitely need tackle help, and I think this would be a sprint to the podium pick if he's there, and I think there's a good chance he is. So that's pretty. If he's there, I think that's the easiest pick in the draft, honestly.
I totally agree. Number 8, another pretty easy pick. First defensive player to go off the board, Dallas Turner out of Alabama. Just a great player on the end. Gives them. I can't. I mean, I've never really thought of the Falcons of having a really good player who could rush the edge and get to the quarterback. I don't know the last time the Falcons have had a really good edge rushing player, good defensive lineman who can really pressure the quarterback. So I think Dallas Turner is a slam dunk pick here. First defensive player off the board, best defensive player in the draft, in my opinion.
I like him personally. I think Latu is a better defender, but he's edge rusher, but he's got injury concerns. And I've seen a lot of stuff about how Raheem Morris, like with the Rams, would drop his edge rushers into coverage a decent amount, and Dallas Turner did that more than the other top guys like Latu and Verse. So I think he's a fit. I don't have any problems with it at all. Just personally, I really, really like Latu, but
Mm-hmm. It's Bama. You can't really bet against the guy, can you?
big problems with that at all.
I love it. So moving down to number 9, the Bears trade out of this pick. I have the Bears trading out. I have Denver swinging in.
I like it.
And I'm sure you can see where this is going. I have the Broncos taking J.J. McCarthy at 9. And this is the one pick where I pointed out and just said that I don't think this is what I would do. But I do think this is what the team is going to do. I think JJ McCarthy averaged about 22 pass attempts pass attempts per game, around 20 to 25 pass attempts per game this season. Rush heavy offense, and that's an advantage. Harbaugh runs a very pro style offense. So JJ McCarthy has the brain, he has the mind, but he's a little slight. And Courtland Sutton's holding out in Denver. We don't know. I mean, we're assuming he's going to be there. Are they going to pay him? I don't know the weapons that are going to be present. I know Tim Patrick comes back for Denver. But I just think JJ McCarthy has a lot of room to improve. I see some Zach Wilson in him. I think he had a lot of talent. He had Blake Corum was his running back at Michigan. He had a ton of great pro-ready players at Michigan, surrounded by a great team. But when I watched Michigan this year, I never saw him really elevating the team and carrying that team to the level in which I saw, for example, C.J. Stroud or something. Obviously, C.J. Stroud had even more help. That's a bad example, but in terms of just being the guy to make a difference, obviously he had that terrible interception on the first play of the Alabama game. I've seen him make some mistakes like that, and I wouldn't do this, but I do think that Denver is going to end up trading up, and I think they're not going to be able to get any of those top three. And I don't think Bo Nix. I think Bo Nix would be a little bit of a reach. I think JJ's a reach at 9, but I'm going to go with JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, JJ's someone who I was originally in the same boat, didn't really like him. He's grown on me in the process. I think he's shown the talent on tape. It's just so much less often than the other guys because they just really didn't throw the ball that much. And I mean, obviously they won the championship, so you can't really blame them for their strategy.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Broncos ending up with JJ McCarthy, I think would be very happy with that. And only having to move up from 12 to 9 because they don't have a second round pick. They already, are paying Russ a bunch of money to not even play for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they'd be very happy that's all they'd have to give up. To move from 12 to 9, they're probably giving up a third round pick and then another late pick probably to only move up 3 spots. So I think they're very happy with that.
Yeah, I do too. Obviously, I made my mock draft last night, so it was before the Zach Wilson news broke. Which kind of confused me. I don't think it does either, but they are paying Trevor Siemian a lot of money to be a backup. And then you bring in Zach Wilson. We think they're going to take a quarterback. I think it's a kind of conclusion they're going to take a quarterback, but it kind of makes things interesting. You got a backup, you're paying a lot of money, and you got Zach Wilson in there. So
you mean,
we'll see.
Stidham?
Yeah, or what did I say?
Siemian, yeah.
Stidham, my bad. Yeah, Jarrett Stidham, paying a lot of money. So I do think that they're going to take a quarterback. Will it be JJ? We'll see. But that'd be my best guess at number 9.
So who are the Chargers taking at 10?
So the Chargers now, after a lot of thought into what they really need, I have them taking the offensive tackle from Oregon State, Fuaga, if that's how you pronounce his name. Forgive me.
Technically, it's so weird. It's like I call them Fuaga for months, and it's the same thing with Tua, and it's like I don't know if it's Hawaiian or Polynesian or something. There's you're supposed to pronounce an N, so it's Fuanga.
Fuanga.
So you know how Tua's supposed to be pronounced like Tunga Vailoa?
Yeah.
It's like
that,
apparently.
I see. Okay.
Really weird.
All right, well, we're gonna go with him anyway.
Yeah, good player.
I think the way that Jim Harbaugh wants to run this offense, I think he wants to really emphasize a run-heavy team. He brought in 2 running backs from his brother, the Ravens, and I think that with his style that he runs, we saw it at Michigan. You really want to allow for Justin Herbert to run play action, and you got to run play action if you got protection. I think they're going to enhance this offensive line. I think they're going to be a bruising team. I think they're going to run the ball down your throat. I think it's going to look a lot different than the Chargers last year. And I think Harbaugh really wants to boost up their offensive line just to enhance that. So I'm taking a tackle here. You could go a lot of ways with this pick. You could take a receiver maybe if there's any really good ones left on the board. Maybe if Rome Odunze drops. But we're going to go with Fuanga here for tackle for the Chargers.
Yeah, I think they definitely try to trade back and take a tackle. I think he's a great fit for what they're trying to do. Maybe about a month and a half ago, before this kind of thought process really gained steam that like Harbaugh is going to take an offensive lineman. Um, Before that really gained steam, I posted a video on my Instagram. I posted a reel, and it was right after they had cut Mike Williams and traded Keenan Allen. And I was like, now a lot of people are saying they need to draft a receiver, and you could argue that they should, but I'm like, I still don't think Harbaugh is going to. I think he's going to go offensive line, and he hires Greg Roman as his offensive coordinator, who's never used a receiver in his entire life.
Right.
So I
Exactly.
don't think they're going to use the fifth overall pick in a receiver class where you can get receivers in literally every single round. Not that Marvin Harrison wouldn't be a great pick or Malik Neighbors at 5, whatever it is. But I'm like, I can almost guarantee that they're going to use their high value picks on offensive linemen. And it got the most videos, a video I've posted on Instagram or TikTok has ever gotten, because the entire comment section was people calling me an idiot for saying they were gonna take O-line or trade back and take O-line. And they're like, they if Marvin Henderson's on the board and they don't take him, or Malik Neighbors, then this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And I think that's exactly what's gonna happen.
I think so too. I really do. And I honestly, I'd be surprised if this isn't the result. If they do take a receiver, obviously we don't love it. Justin Herbert with a brand new, great receiver. But I just think with the offense they're trying to build, this is the right pick. This is what they're going to do. And I honestly would be surprised otherwise.
I really like it. The Chargers have been soft for my entire life. It feels like they've just
Mhm.
been like a soft, squishy team that's like all about finesse. And Harbaugh is the complete opposite. And I think he's going to go in there, and his first major move is going to be this about toughness and winning the line of scrimmage. And honestly, I really salute it, because I think he's going to be the guy to stick to his guns. And I think that's how you win football games. So I love it.
Mhm. I agree. I 100% agree. So now at 11, we got the Patriots, who are back on the clock after trading down. And, again, we kind of touched on it earlier. This isn't a team, we've talked about this in the past, that I don't think it's ready to bring a young quarterback into. I mean, they're like they just don't really have any talent at all. Maybe they'll go make some moves this offseason. Maybe they'll bring in a receiver if there is a receiver to bring in. I don't know if the market's kind of dried up. I do have them taking an offensive lineman out of Penn State, Fashanu. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong again. I got them
It's
taking
technically Fashnu.
Fashanu. Okay, I got to work on these.
I was saying
Um,
Fashnu for months too.
these offensive tackles, man. But I do have them taking offensive tackle. I think that they do want to build at least the outer fortress for whatever quarterback it's going to be going forward. They got Jacoby Brissett. I think Jacoby Brissett's going to play the majority of the season. They're going to get a good gauge on how their offensive line goes, how their first round draft pick, reacts in the new league, and how he fits into this offense if it's an offensive tackle. Because that is a weakness of theirs. They have a lot of Bill Belichick left them in a tough spot, not very skill deprived. And so I think that trade back, get some assets, take a tackle, one of the best players in the draft. I think this is a good pick, but it's really, I mean, Patriots fans, I'm sorry. I don't know if it's going to be a good season. You might be picking high again, and maybe that'll be your time to get the quarterback,
Yeah, I think this is the right thing to do. And I think he's a great value at 11. There's some questions about his play strength and run blocking, but he's one of the best pass pro offensive tackles to come out in a while. So I love him there.
Love it. Awesome. So now the Bears, after trading down from 9, I have them going defense here with a player that I actually love in Jared Verse. I think he could be a player who is in the running for rookie. I mean, or a defensive player of the year in a couple of years. I think he's that good. The Bears actually had the second fewest amount of sacks in the league last year. Obviously their defense got a lot better in the second half of the season. But I do think that, they've already covered the offense a ton in free agency, trades. They've surrounded Caleb Williams with a lot of great talent. And I think it's time to focus more on their defense. They had a defensive-minded coach. I think he can move Jared Verse around a little bit. But I think he's a weapon, and I think they're going to take him. I think he's going to be a great pick if they take him. Wherever he goes, I think he's going to hit. And so I think the Bears are going to go defense with their second pick.
I love it. I love Verse. Like I said, I'm a huge Latu guy, but he does have the neck injury concerns, so I could definitely see him falling. I think a lot of people are a little lower than this on Verse, but I think he's very much worth that 12th pick. I've loved every pick so far.
Cool. And now we're going to go to Vegas. Vegas, I don't see them. I see a lot of mock drafts them trading up or just staying put and taking a quarterback like Nix or Penix. I think for some reason, I think they're set with where they are at the quarterback room. I think they're going to go defense here. I think they're going to take the cornerback out of Alabama, Terrion Arnold. As you can tell, I love Bama's defense. I think Bama had a tremendous defense last year. I think they have so much talent on that defensive side in this class. They do need a lot of help at corner. One of the bottom teams in terms of overall interceptions and turnovers from the back end. I think this is going to be a great pick for the Raiders. I think they go corner here. Not much to say there. I believe they go corner with this pick.
Yeah, I see a lot of people having them looking at Penix or something like that. I think they're fine at quarterback. I like Minshew. I think O'Connell's pretty decent. And they definitely need help at corner. My favorite corner is Quinyon Mitchell, but I'm not going to knock you very much for having Arnold there either. So I think he's probably better in man coverage, and Mitchell is probably a little better in zone. So it's kind of what you prefer. And I don't have any major qualms about that. What are the
Plus,
Saints?
you got a defensive coach coming back. You know, maybe he doesn't want to put a rookie quarterback in that position. New coach, so I think they go defense there.
I like it.
All right, moving on to 14. The New Orleans Saints. I just think this team is kind of in purgatory at this point. I don't see this team improving much. They haven't really made any moves. It seems like they're just kind of running back. Derek Carr is Derek Carr. I have them enhancing their offensive line a little bit. I got them taking Troy Fautanu from Washington. He was a huge reason this team was able to protect Penix enough for him to put up the season he did. Obviously, the national championship's got a different story. But I do think that they do need some help. I mean, we saw the regression of Alvin Kamara last year beyond that offensive line. I think they just need some offensive line help, to be completely honest. They have some good receivers. They have a good running back, good enough quarterback, and then a solid defense. So I don't see many reasons. I just saw what they did last year. I didn't see many changes in the offseason. I think the only thing they really need to improve to take a little bit of a step is their offensive line. So I am taking the lineman out of Washington.
Yeah, he's actually one of my absolute favorite players in this draft class. So I really like it. I've heard that it's technically pronounced Fautanu.
Man.
So there's
over 3 on these
Fashnu and Fautanu at tackle, which is
man. It's a tongue twister, these offensive tackles.
Yeah, I love it. Some people might be like, why would the Saints take a tackle when they took Trevor Penning last year? But he was horrible. And then Ryan Ramczyk, who's been a mainstay at right tackle, who's been very good, he was like maybe still is considering retirement from like injuries and stuff. And Fautanu is very versatile and can probably play guard too if those two positions were to work out. So I think that's a great pick for the Saints. Love it.
Love it. All right, moving on to 15. The Indianapolis Colts. I started kind of, from what I listened to, hearing rumors going on and on. They might want to add some skill position to this offense. They isn't much talent surrounding Anthony Richardson his second year. I really think that that's something that they want to focus on, something they want to improve. I got him taking the great tight end out of Georgia, Brock Bowers, at 15. Just can do it all. Great pass blocker, great run blocker, great pass catcher, obviously. He's a beast in the red zone, and he's fast as hell. I just think that this is just a great opportunity to enhance this offense with a young quarterback. Give him just a quick outlet. And tight end, for a lot of these young quarterbacks, tight end is their best friend, whether it's Mahomes with Kelsey. I just think a tight end is such a great, when you're coming into the league, such a great, easy little dump down if you need to. And someone who can get lots of yards after catch, like Brock Bowers and, like Kelsey out of when Mahomes came into the league. I just think that these are the type of guys you want to surround around, young quarterbacks and get them the ball if they need it, get it away quick and give it to someone like that. I think this is going to be wherever he goes. I think he's going to be great. But I think giving him to a young quarterback who's starting to learn the game a little bit, give him a quick out. I think this is going to be a great pick.
Yeah, they're putting a lot of insane athletes together with Bowers, Richardson, Jonathan Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty crazy.
Absolutely, it's a fun offense to watch next year if they click.
Yeah, I posted my own mock draft and I made this same pick. The only thing I do worry about, and I think Bowers is great and will fit anywhere. And I think he'd be great in the Colts, and you're building such an athletic offense. It's awesome. The only thing I do worry about is he's kind of that like big slot mold type of player where it's like almost hybrid tight end receiver type thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And Pittman kind of plays that role, being kind of that like intermediate, bigger slot type player, and Josh Downs is kind of a slot player.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing I kind of worry about, and they I feel like in terms of need on the roster, they need more of like perimeter threats.
Mm-hmm.
But he's such a great talent that,
It's tough
and
to pick.
Shane Steichen's such a great coach that the value of 15 is great. So
Exactly, and like you said, you go into Shane Steichen, and who knows? To my knowledge, they still have Mo Alley Cox at tight end as well, who is more of a bigger red zone tight end threat.
yeah,
And with someone like Shane Steichen,
Mo Alley Cox, and they have another really big tight end. Can't think of his name.
I can't think of his name either.
Jelani Woods.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So if you got two tight ends like that, someone like Shane Steichen can
Both
afford
like 6'7",
maybe.
like 260, and like huge.
Yeah, but they can afford maybe to put Brock Bowers, maybe put him in the slot. I mean, get creative.
Yeah.
Lots of talent. I mean,
Find a
this
way.
could be fun, and maybe Brock Bowers will see him in different formations in different spots than we've seen him, at Georgia. So who knows? I mean, with an offensive mind like Shane Steichen, who knows? I mean, options are really limitless there.
Yeah. All right.
Cool.
See ya.
We are going to Seattle, and Seattle is gonna enhance their defensive line and take Byron Murphy, the second out of Texas. Similar to the Raiders, I think that they're comfortable with their quarterback room. I think they got Geno, I think, for another year, maybe two. I could see them trading back into the first round and looking at someone like Michael Penix. But I do think that they want to enhance their defense here. They got great perimeter talent on offense. And I just think that they were bottom half of the league in terms of total sacks last year. I think this team is going to be, a team that's competent on offense, but their defense needs some skill. They need a pass rusher, and they need someone to get in those lanes. I think Byron Murphy's a great talent, and I got him going to Seattle.
Yeah, I think that's amazing value. I think it's an amazing fit. I think Penix would have to at least be talked about in the room because the offensive coordinator at Washington last year is now the offensive coordinator in Seattle. But it's so tough for the Seahawks because they traded for Leonard Williams and they don't have a second round pick. So trading back into the first round is going to be very, very
a lot.
They don't have a second round pick to give the team. And taking a quarterback in the first round that's going to sit for at least a year is also tough to stomach because you don't even have a second round pick either. And Byron Murphy is awesome. So I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving on to 17, a team that some could say really underachieved last year, a team that really folded down the stretch. I think regardless of losing Calvin Ridley, I think their offense is okay. I have them going corner here. I got them taking the corner out of Toledo, Quinyon Mitchell. Really highly rated prospect, huge talent. I think that, their defense ever since that playoff run they made with Blake Bortles has not been the same. They've lost a lot of that talent, obviously, but it hasn't been, run the same way. They haven't really had a great secondary in years, ever since prime Jalen Ramsey left. So I got them going corner here, not really thinking much. There's not many needs on this roster. You can argue offensive line, protect Trevor Lawrence. He got banged up last year. But at this point, the really great offensive linemen are kind of off the board, with the exception of maybe Amarius Mims. But I think they go corner here and just kind of shore up the secondary a little bit.
Yeah. Offensive line could be a need, but they've invested a lot in it already too, so they kind of got to see how things play out. And they really need a corner, and Quinyon Mitchell is great value at 17. So I
So
think
we'll
they
go with that.
very good with that.
All right. So with that, we're going to go to the Bengals. And the Bengals, I feel like it's just a yearly tradition that we talk about the Bengals taking offensive linemen. It just seems that no matter what they do, they can never really shore up their offensive line. So they go with the aforementioned Amarius Mims, the tackle from Georgia. I just think that with a quarterback like Joe Burrow, I mean, you're getting close to the point where if he has another major injury, like you're gonna have to start having some serious talks, some discussions about building a contingency plan. You don't ever want to have those conversations with a quarterback, A, that you're paying that much money to, B, that got to a Super Bowl in a second year, and C, has the talent that and the upside that Joe Burrow does. I think their number one priority right now should be protecting him at all costs. So I think they got to take a Georgia offensive lineman. Never really a bad idea. So we're gonna roll with him, and I could see this team considering maybe trading up and maybe looking at Brock Bowers, but I think the smart thing to do would to be take an offensive lineman here.
Yeah, I really like it. Amarius Mims is a freak show offensive lineman, super athletic, and has really good tape at Georgia. The only thing is that it took him a little bit to get on the field just because Georgia's so talented. And then he only really had, I think, a little bit less than a season of like full starter snaps. So he looks really good. He's really athletic. It's just he might need a little bit more time to develop just because he just hasn't had that many snaps of
Mm-hmm.
high level football. But the fact that he's still going at 18 shows how, and it's not a reach, shows how how good his traits are. And they just signed Trent Brown, and they already have Orlando Brown, and they only have Trent Brown for a year, and he's old and gets hurt all the time anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
Mims is probably going to be able to, start off on the bench, learn from those guys, and you're not going to have Trent Brown in a year anyway. So I think it's really good.
Yeah,
Really.
you bring up a great point about Trent Brown. I mean, you could sit if you have to sit until maybe Thanksgiving, sit until maybe the end of the year and learn a lot from Trent Brown.
Yeah.
Obviously he's a guy that comes with a lot of history, but he's a veteran. He's been around, and I'm sure he's got a lot of great wisdom that he could teach, and almost treat it like a quarterback position. Have him, treat him up and learn the game, and this could be a potential, game changer. Have a great offensive line for years to come, and maybe this is the last step to rebuilding this thing and having Joe Burrow finally have a wall and be able to, complete some passes and freaking, light it up like he did when he got to the Super Bowl again.
Yeah. I love that pick.
All right. So moving on, now we got the Rams. This was a pretty easy pick, to be completely honest. The Rams and what seems like their first round pick since I was born. I have the Rams taking Darius Robinson. I think that this guy is such a versatile athlete. And obviously with the loss of Aaron Donald, this guy can really play anywhere on the defensive line. He's a freak athlete. Huge presence. He could rush the passer. He could clog the middle. I just think this guy is a monster athlete. And I think he can really fill the shoes. Obviously, not entirely to what Aaron Donald did, but I think that this guy is a serious defensive weapon and could be a huge hit in the first round here. Maybe a good steal too.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I think that's very different than what a lot of people um would have. Most people have him as like fringe first round pick, and Jerzon Newton from Illinois is kind of the consensus next interior defensive lineman. Um, I would personally probably take Newton because I really like him, and he's kind of got that same undersized feel.
Mhm.
But I don't hate it. I think Darius Robinson, his kind of story is interesting. He's a kind of tweener where he played a lot of interior defensive line earlier in his career and then played a lot off the edge as a really big, like 285-pound edge rusher.
Mhm.
And big athlete, kind of had like mediocre to like average production in college. But then he went to the Senior Bowl, which is all, NFL prospects. And he had one of the best Senior Bowls we've ever seen, just dominating offensive linemen. So
Mhm.
this is a very surprising pick to me, but I think it's cool that it's very different. I think at this point in the year, people look at mock drafts and 80% of them are essentially the same exact thing. And I think this is something really interesting where if people really, really value that setting of the Senior Bowl, where it's kind of all of the better older players that are all draft prospects and someone comes in there and dominates, maybe that shows that they weren't used correctly in college or the coaching staff wasn't utilizing them. And when you
Mm-hmm.
put them in that environment, they dominate. Like he had one
Mm-hmm.
of the most insane Senior Bowls we've seen. So
Mm-hmm.
it'd be cool to see a team like really take that into account and say, yeah, we've seen all we need to see when he was around the best players.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely not a consensus thing. And this is the first Rams first round pick since 2016. And if this happened, I think a lot of people would be like, oh, that's a reach. But like looking at it more and more, I'd be like, wow, if they like him that much, I think that could work out long term. And the
Yeah.
biggest thing with the draft too, people will be like, oh, that's a reach, that's so much. The draft is such a crapshoot that you gotta take your guys.
Mm-hmm. I
Like
agree.
no draft ever has been like, oh, the consensus was like 90% correct on like
Mm-hmm.
this guy is ranked 1 through 10 at this position. So I
Yeah,
think a lot of people would be surprised by that pick, but I like that you're sticking to your guns and you like him that much. I
I
like
do.
I respect
I
it.
do, and I think we'll see how the Rams defense structure looks with the departure of Raheem Morris, but obviously I think that he could fill the shoes and at least to a degree of Aaron Donald and create that presence on the defensive line. So that's who we're going to go with. And at 20, Pittsburgh, pretty easy here. They got to go O line. I got to take the center out of Duke, Graham Barton. Great run blocker. This team, for the better half of last year, really struggled in the red zone. They really struggled to get Najee Harris, in particular, across the line in the red zone and within the 5. This guy could really provide that. And I think that the Steelers are desperate to find a run game. And it all starts with the offensive line. Obviously, you'd like to give some protection to the quarterback, but at the end of the day, this team needs to run the ball better, more efficiently. They got 2 really good running backs, and a lot of people say they're not being used to their full potential. And I think a lot of that starts with, a lot of people are quick to blame, Matt Canada and what he did, but I think that it all starts from the offensive line. I think this is a very slam dunk pick. I think they're going Graham Barton here.
Really like that. Graham Barton's a really interesting player. He started off at center at Duke and he's a mauler and um really good play strength and kind of works in a phone booth and plays really in close with defenders and he's really nasty in the run game. But they noticed right away that he was their best offensive lineman at Duke, so they just threw him at tackle, and he kind of played out of position for the rest of his college career because they just needed someone to play tackle for their offense to function. But
Mm-hmm.
everyone knows he's probably going to be better suited off, better on the interior in the NFL. He's got shorter arms, and like I said, he kind of plays in that short, close quarters phone booth kind of way. So I think that would be a great Steelers pick, and I really like the fit. And he can kind of he could he can play all 5 positions in the offensive line. So I love it.
Cool. Moving on, 21st, the Miami Dolphins. I got him taking your boy that I'm going to mispronounce, so I'm just going to say his last name, Latu,
Yep.
from
Latu,
UCLA.
Latu.
I think that we all know that this offense is set. This offense is fine. Say what you want about the cold weather, Tua. That's something that you don't fix in the draft. That's something that you fix coaching wise. I think this team really needs to shore up their defense. Defense started to play a little better once Jalen Ramsey returned, but at the end of the day, taking an offensive player, honestly, for this team in the first round would be a mistake. You got to go defense here. You got to get the best player on the board at this spot. And I think right now that guy's the best player on the board. Provides a huge advantage, huge off the edge. And in the AFC East, you got to get to the quarterback, or else these guys are just going to light you up. Obviously, they've done well to rebuild. Obviously, they had some losses on defense. I think this guy could fill that hole, and I think that's a good pick.
Yeah, I think he's the best value on the board. I think if they were to go offense, they could use some offensive line help. But the offense, the way it functions in itself really props up offensive line play and makes it a lot easier on them. They lost some interior guys. They might be upset that Graham Barton went one pick in front of them. But Latu is the best player on the board. The guy you're talking about that they lost in the edge room is Andrew Van Ginkel, who had a great season last year.
Yep.
I think Jalen Phillips is coming off a major injury, if I'm not.
I think he had ACL. He had an ACL, I think.
Yeah. So, and I absolutely love Latu. So
then why not? He just seems like a Dolphin, right? I mean, come on.
yeah, I think Jalen Phillips is like a kind of sort of similar body type, I think, but also went to UCLA.
Right.
So, yeah,
How about
definitely
that?
seems like a Dolphin.
It does. So moving on, number 22, the Philadelphia Eagles. Knowing Howie Roseman, they could get real creative here. But again, this is based off what I would do. And right now, I think they kind of need to rebuild their defense a little bit. You know, contrary to some belief, I got them taking the Iowa corner, Cooper DeJean. I think he is and again, I think it's because it's Howie Roseman. He's going to get a steal here. And I think this is a bit of a steal at this position. I don't know if he's going to drop that far. But it just always seems, you know, that Roseman gets some player, whether it's Jalen Carter, or someone that you just never would expect to drop for some reason, and they always land them. Rebuild the defense. Jalen Hurts, you know, I think that he's a good enough quarterback. They have, you know, obviously they could use a bit offense. Their offensive line's getting old. Obviously they had a big loss. But I think they're going to stick with defense here. I think at the end of the day, defense is kind of what let them down at the end of last year. Say what you want about the offense. But I think their defense kind of dropped the ball a little bit last year. And I think they're going to take the best available player, and he's a corner, and he's from Iowa, and his name's Cooper DeJean.
Yeah, I really like it. I think if you look at the Eagles' biggest weakness towards the end of the year was their secondary and the inability to tackle. And I think Cooper DeJean actually saw something literally today that apparently he wants it pronounced like Dijon or something weird like
I saw that too. Yeah.
It was on the PFF podcast, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's great. And I think one of the biggest things about him is he's really athletic, kind of moving more in that like straight line kind of that type of athleticism more than agility, side to side lateral movement. And Vic Fangio is obviously famous for his cover 3 scheme, where it has a lot more corners kind of turning and running or driving on balls in front of them. And it really places a lot on like safeties coming into the box, which I think Dijon could, or Dijon, whatever you want to say, can also fill that role really well. So I think he fits. It's actually one of my favorite fits in the entire draft is him going to the Eagles specifically. And I don't think enough people are talking about it as being that good of a fit. And I honestly think this is around the valley if he should go. I'm going to let you explain the next pick or two. I will be right back. I'm going to pee my pants.
Go for it.
So I'll put in these picks in 2 seconds.
All right. So I think with New England, obviously New England gets that pick after the trade from Minnesota. If I'm not, yeah. And so I got the Patriots here. I got them going with Nate Wiggins, the cornerback out of Clemson. Again, I think with the Patriots got 2 first-round picks, they're going offense, in my opinion, with their first pick. I think they're going to take a tackle, whether they trade down or not. It's either going to be a quarterback or a tackle. But, you know, I do think they need some help on defense. Their defense has always been great, it seems like. But you got to remember you are losing one of the greatest defensive coaches of all time in Bill Belichick. Who knows how this defense is going to operate without him? It could totally flop. You know, the players could lose that sense of accountability. So I think that enhancing the corner position, it will, you know, provide some value. I still don't see them. Again, at this spot, you could see them maybe taking a receiver like Adonai Mitchell, or even not trading, but taking a quarterback like maybe Bo Nix. A lot of people like the fit with Bo Nix in New England. But I do think they're going to take corner here. And so that's why I'm going to go with Nate Wiggins.
Interesting. So they took a corner in Christian Gonzalez last yeyer, which had a lot of similar athletic traits. So I think that's very interesting. Also interesting, like I heard you talking about just at the end there, that they would trade down, get to pick 23, and they'd have their pick of Penix and Nix, right? They didn't go.
And they
Um,
wouldn't need to trade. Yeah, they wouldn't.
but-
They would be there, and
and
they
they
would be
still
there.
have,
Hmm.
which I don't hate. I don't think it is out of the realm of possibilities at all that Penix and or Nix fall to the second.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
we might be headed that way because none of the remaining teams need a quarterback.
Hmm.
And I don't think that's outlandish at all,
Hmm.
to be honest. Like we
Hmm.
saw last year, Levis falling all the way to the second. And I kind of
Hmm.
feel like a lot these teams, obviously quarterback is so valuable and they'll go early in the beginning of the first round. But once you kind of get past those teams, it kind of turns into kind of a game of chicken of who's going to take the next quarterback.
Hmm.
And I could definitely see this happening. So
Cool. Moving on. 24 Dallas. Dallas had a big loss on their offensive line this offseason. I don't see him going many other ways with this. So I have Dallas taking J.C. Latham from Bama. I just think to keep it short, you got CD, you got a top, some will argue top 6 or 7 wide receiver in the league in CD Lamb. Obviously, you got to work on. You can't take a running back at this position. They really scare me at the running back position. I don't know what their plan is. I don't know if they're going to take one in the second round. But you can't roll the dice with Rico Dowdle going forward. But I think they are going to rebuild their offensive line a little bit. The Cowboys always seem to have a good offensive line. If I remember correctly, they took, I think 2 years ago, they took a tag. Was it Tyler Smith?
mm-hmm.
And a lot of people saw that as a reach. But he ended up performing quite well once he got there. Surprised a lot of people. I could see this going the same way. I can see the Cowboys going tackle here or going offensive tackle here. And I don't know. I think the Cowboys always seem to go tackle. I'm going to go tackle here.
Yeah, I don't love Latham. I think this is like around the valley he should go. Some people really like him. I honestly think he's better off at guard, which they could still be playing him at guard. They lost their center, Tyler Biadasz, and also Tyron Smith. So going offensive line, I think it's decent value. Latham, I think, can play guard or tackle. So
cool. Packers. Again, I feel like the Packers, with the exception of last year, I feel like they always go defense in the first round. I have them taking Kool-Aid McKinstry.
They did go defense in the first round last year. They took Van Ness from Iowa.
Oh, that's right.
They love going defense in the first round.
When was the receiver 2 years ago? Did they take a receiver in the first round 2 years ago?
I think Christian Watson was a second round pick.
Was he a second?
Yeah, I think 2 years ago they took Eric Stokes, a corner from Georgia, and Devontae Wyatt, defensive lineman from Georgia, both defenders.
Yeah. So why not?
Very much love going defense in the first round.
So we're gonna go defense.
Was it the linebacker? What's his face? The guy that gets ejected all the time.
Oh,
Walker.
No.
Right? Am I an idiot?
Quay Walker, Georgia.
Yeah, Quay Walker.
Yeah, another one. So I got him going defense again. I got him taking a corner from Alabama.
Yeah, Kool-Aid McKinstry.
Why not?
Good player. The Packers have like no needs. It's kind of secondary, kind of linebacker, and kind of interior offensive line. So I
do think they need some help in the secondary. I don't think Stokes has panned out the way they thought he would.
Yeah, it's decent. They kind of like have patched it together with some later round picks and stuff too. So I really like the Kool-Aid pick.
They always seem to draft defense well anyway. They always seem to just draft well, period. The Packers.
Yeah, their roster is very good.
Absolutely. Not many needs, like you said. So moving on, 26. I have Tampa Bay taking, in my opinion, just a very Buccaneer player and Jason Newton. Best player on the board, kind of at this point. You can't really argue that. I just think he creates a more of a presence on the defensive line. The Bucs, they've always had a good pass rush. But I just think at this point in the draft, you can't really, again, you can go offensive line here. A lot of the great offensive linemen have kind of already left. So I just think they're going to go best player on the board. unless the team is trying to trade, I was thinking about another trade at this spot up to 26 for someone trying to sneak back in and get a quarterback in the first round to get that first round value and that extra year. So I decided to just stick with 26 Buccaneers and taking Newton out of Illinois. I just think a good offensive line can turn, or a good defensive line can turn to a great one. And I think this is what they're building there. And why not? Best player on the board.
Yeah, I definitely think he's best player on the board. The one thing I do worry about, the Buccaneers in terms of team needs would be looking at, probably corner or edge rusher. I think Newton's the best player on the board though, so I can't be mad at that at all. The one thing I do worry about is on the defensive interior, they just drafted Kalijah Cansey, who's also kind of an
Oh,
undersized
he's
D
a stud.
lineman, and he's a very good player. I like him a lot. And
Mhm.
having two undersized interior D linemen can be kind of iffy, but he's also the best player on the board, so I can't argue with it at all. The other
Mhm.
thing as a general kind of idea that I like for a lot of these teams that have, the quarterback on the short term deal that's like a mid-tier quarterback contract, like Baker Mayfield and the Bucks,
Mhm.
Geno Smith and the Seahawks, maybe what we see Brock Purdy get with the 49ers.
We'll
I
see.
think the best way to go about that is to like invest all you can in the offense
Mhm.
to elevate their play from mid-tier quarterback to kind of manufacture that top 10-ish play, even though they're maybe not a top 10 quarterback, but
Mhm.
also create like a super environment. So you have the ability to maybe once that contract runs out, get a cheaper quarterback, draft a quarterback, and then you already have a great ecosystem in place for the next quarterback to succeed. Uh,
Mhm.
Kind of where I'm going with this, also with specifically the Buccaneers, they're in kind of a tough spot normally where the way the draft falls to fill specific needs and to match value. But if they took a receiver, I think it'd be very interesting to just like inject like as many weapons as you possibly can for Baker Mayfield or the quarterback you draft in a year or two. And kind of on top of it, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are getting older. Um, so I think receiver could be in play there, and it's not something people really talk about. Um, but that's a long way of saying that I think Newton is the best player on the board, and I have no problems with that pick. I'm just saying for teams that are in a similar situation, I think they should really look to kind of take that strategy.
I totally agree. I definitely agree. And we've seen a lot of teams, at least with the quarterbacks on their rookie deal, make great runs to the Super Bowl. Russell Wilson, obviously Brock Purdy, Mahomes, and we've just seen these quarterbacks go on great runs. And if you're not paying them, yeah, exactly. Throw a bunch of money at the offense and just squeeze the most juice out of the quarterback as you can. Um, I thought about this, and I just think I really like the way Tampa Bay's receivers played at the end of last year, and not just Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, but they got a lot of production out of like Trey Palmer and Devin Tompkins. Guys that might be poised to take the next step. Bringing Evans back is huge. I think that their offense could improve. So I'm just going best player on the board.
Yeah, no problems with it. It's also an amazing receiver draft. So I
Mm-hmm.
feel like we're getting into the range where the best players on the board are receivers, but it's
Yeah.
you kind of think to yourself, okay, am I going to take this receiver now when I could also get a really great receiver in the second or third round.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like, where do you start the run?
Yeah. Yeah, we've seen a lot of great receivers come out of the second, third, fourth round, especially as of lately. And this draft, I'd be shocked if it isn't the same. But moving on, we got the Cardinals at 27.
I think the
Uh,
Cardinals would be pissed that Newton fell all the way here and then went right
mm-hmm,
because he'd
mm-hmm,
be
absolutely. No, I 100% agree. They are going to stay with defense here. Teams that have two first round picks very rarely, I feel like, go offense, or defense. If you got two first round picks, you should get the best guy on offense and the best guy on defense available at the time. I got them going DJ James out of Auburn. Little on the smaller side, but still he's fast and there's a lot of great receivers in this division that you're gonna have to defend. the Cardinals were, I believe, like 7th in the league in total yards, and even more of that was given up in the air. So they really struggle in their secondary. I see him going corner here, and a really good player, maybe a touch of a reach. We'll see, but they do need to enhance their corners.
Yeah, corner is definitely a big need. I don't think that would be the corner that I'd go with, but I also kind of feel like a lot of the corners would be a reach here at this spot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I think Chris Sims is a huge DJ James guy, right?
I'm not sure. I'd have to look that up.
He had
CBS Sports.
probably. Yeah, I haven't done a ton of research into DJ James. My favorite corners in that spot, maybe Rakestraw or Andrew Phillips, I kind of like.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but you know, that's what you got to do.
Well, we get surprised. We get surprised every year in the draft, and
Yeah,
I might just be a genius. We never know. Maybe
yeah,
I'll be the next Cardinals GM.
yeah. It's
Probably
hard for
not.
me to hate on any real pick in the draft
We'll
because
see.
it's
We'll
such a
see.
crap.
We'll find out on Thursday. Not much to cover there. And now, after a long hiatus of skill positions not going, the Buffalo Bills are on the clock, and they go receiver, and they go Adonai Mitchell out of Texas. Real game changer. I just think that the Bills, this is a surefire pick. I think they could even trade up if somehow between Roma Dunze and their pick, another receiver goes, we might see them even trade up and just try to assure that they're getting a really top quality receiver. But like you said, there's so many good receivers in this draft. I think they need to go receiver here. I really do. I think that their run game really came true last year, at the end of last year, when Joe Brady took over. Their defense, man, their defense lost a lot of players. But at this point, there's not any real defensive players that I would say I would take this guy over taking a receiver. I think taking a receiver is more important than taking a defensive player, just because I think Adonai Mitchell is that good. I think his value is higher than any defensive player that could pick even to their team. I think Josh Allen needs a guy. Obviously, they got Shakir. Shakir is a great player, young kid. Dalton Kincaid, I think he's gonna have a great year. I think throw another young receiver in there, and you got Josh Allen throwing you the ball. How bad can you be? I got the Bills going Adonai Mitchell here.
Yeah, I like it. I think the two more consensus receivers on the board here are between him and Brian Thomas. I actually do kind of like Brian Thomas's fit with the Bills too. I feel like he's a better version of Gabe Davis, but at the same time, I think Adonai Mitchell has a better profile to be like a true number one
Mm-hmm.
receiver in an offense. I think he, the way I describe Adonai Mitchell is he's really good at the hard things of playing receiver, and he's not that good at the easy things. And what I mean by that is that he'll like be really good against man coverage, and he'll box a guy out, and he'll win a jump ball and have great ball skills. But then he'll just take plays off that he kind of knows he's not going to get the ball, or he's not that great against zone coverage, which is more often an easier skill set to have.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think all that means is that because he's, good at the hard stuff, that he has so much more potential to be a full on, like, once he develops his game, wide receiver one that can win in any single way you want. Versus Brian Thomas, I think has to be just, your X deep threat that lines up on the line of scrimmage and he threatens the defense deep, where that's kind of more of like a piece of an offense or like a wide receiver too, where Mitchell could take on that full role as the guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree, and I like what you said about him being a number one. You see a lot of the traits. The intangibles are there. He makes the easy look really freaking easy. And he could be spectacular as well. And like I said, I think the Bills need a receiver bad. And I think I like Adonai Mitchell's upside more than Brian Thomas. I might be alone in that category, but
I
I
agree
do.
with you. I don't think most people do, but I agree with you.
Okay. Yeah, so we're gonna go with him there. Moving on to Detroit. Um, I had to think about this one a lot actually. I was thinking defense, 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 defense. But similar to the Bills, I don't think there's many defensive players, with the exception of maybe Chop Robertson, Chop Robinson, I'm sorry, that could be a real, like game changer on defense. And I think that they are obviously set on receiver. There's obviously some other good receivers that are hanging around there. I really like the way their young receivers came on last year. They got some talent out there. I think they have maybe one of the best receivers in the league in Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, deep threat. I think that they're going to enhance one of their strengths and go offensive line here. I think they're going to go Jackson Powers Johnson out of Oregon. I just think that obviously they have one of the best centers in the league. But I think this guy, you can move him around a little bit, get him at guard. And I think that just because you have a strength doesn't mean you disregard it. I think that if you have a strength, like this is the Lions' identity right now, is ground and pound, and just building this offensive line. I mean, they have the potential of the best offensive line in the league, the best run game in the league. They got such great talent back there. And I think it would just be cool to see the Lions take another big offensive lineman. Just seems very Lions, seems very Dan Campbell. Very smart offensive guy. I got them going offensive lineman here.
Yeah, I really like it. Like you said, very Dan Campbell guy. Tough, big, mauling, strong center is definitely a Lions pick. And I think he could fill in at guard. They lost Jonah Jackson, who was kind of that like big mauling guard who signed a big contract with the Rams. So I think he could fill in at guard there. And obviously he plays center currently, but could play guard.
Right.
And they have Frank Ragnow, who might be the best center in the NFL. But he's also dealt with some big injury problems recently, I believe.
And he's getting up there in age too.
Yeah, so he could be a replacement / fill-in if he's dealing with injury problems, or I think he could play guard and be really good. So I think it is very important for the Lions to maintain that identity of having a really strong offensive line. I think not enough teams in the NFL find that identity and stick to it and invest in keeping that identity long term. So I love that pick. Very Lions, like you said.
I think there's a lot of teams that would kill for Jackson Powers Johnson.
Yeah.
I think that I think this is a good. I think that to get him at this spot is huge, and I think that they see him still sitting there. They're not going to pass on him. That's the pick.
Like it.
So speaking of Chop Robinson, I do have Chop Robinson going to the Ravens. Just a very Ravens pick. Ravens draft linebackers so well, and I just think that enhancing their defense is just something they always do well every single year in the draft, free agency. They've made some insanely good moves on defense. Roquan Smith, bringing him in. I just think they always have a good, solid defense. And similar to the Lions, I think they should build on their strength. I think they should make their defense even better. They a lot of people think receiver maybe. Ravens never. I think you mentioned this in another podcast. A huge year could be coming for Rashad Bateman. I think that they're set on the offense. I really do. And I just think that drafting another linebacker and being able to move him around a little bit, moving to edge if you want, and really give different looks for the offense. Looking, and you're looking, you see all this movement from the defense. You got Chop Robinson, you got all these players. It's intimidating, and you can move him around a bit. And I think that this could be a really interesting pick, and I think they could have a lot of fun with him on defense. I'm sure you got some analysis on this one.
Yeah, he's a freak athlete, edge rusher. A little similar to Odafe Owe, both coming out of Penn State, both freak athlete edge rushers that are a little undersized. But, the Ravens edge rush kind of always a good player, and kind of opposite that, Kyle Van Noy had a great season. But he's obviously very old. He came back. Clowney left, and they have David Ojabo, who was a injured second round pick that they had. That was kind of a first round talent. Came back, didn't really look that great, got hurt again, so you don't really know what you have in him. But the Ravens defense and kind of their edge rush, and they led the league in sacks last year, and it's based a lot on exotic blitzes and things like that, and putting someone like Chop Robinson in that kind of system where he's got so much burst and speed, where maybe you want guys that are a little bit more athletic than just like technicians because you're sending them on crazy stunts and blitzes all the time anyway. I think he would be a great spot in there. And the Ravens, the one thing they're always going to do is take the best player available in the first round, regardless of what their roster looks like. So I think that's great pick for him. I would not be
that'd be fun. That'd be a lot of fun to watch that.
Yeah.
San
Also,
Francisco.
one thing I want to say, these last 4 picks, I think are prime trade down spots.
Really?
Yeah. If a team was looking to move up to get back in the first for a quarterback, and kind of the way these kind of spots land, I feel like picks, the Bills probably really want a receiver at 28, but picks 29 through 40 are like very similar valued players. So if you wanted to move up for someone specific, I feel like all 4 of these teams would be looking to move back.
Yeah, I think Detroit and San Francisco in particular. I think Baltimore really wants to keep that first round pick. I think KC wants to keep that first round pick as well. I'll get to that in a second. But there are going to be teams that want to get in to the end of the first round. We've seen that's how Lamar Jackson went. Lamar Jackson went at the very end of the first round. The Ravens wanted that extra year of contractual control. They wanted to get in the first round, and they snuck in to get him. And we could very well see that someone trading up with San Francisco, whoever it might be, and taking a Bo Nix or taking a Michael Penix just for that reason. We've seen that happen so much. I wouldn't be surprised at all. I didn't include that in this mock draft, though. I wasn't really thinking that far in advance for.
Oh yeah, I think it's just something to think about.
Absolutely, I totally agree. 31st, San Francisco. I had him going offensive line here. I got him taking Tyler Guyton. Trent Williams is getting old, and you got a quarterback like Brock Purdy who he needs protection. He really does. Obviously the Niners have one of the best run games, one of the best run offenses, schemes, whatever you want to call it in the league with Christian McCaffrey. I mean, I feel like you can put anyone. I feel like you can put me back there and I would run for 1,000 yards. I just feel like this is such a good system, and like I keep saying, build on your strengths. I don't think they need much help defensively. You can argue, but at this point, there's not many defensive players that I'm like blown away with that the Niners would take. I just stick to the basics. I got them going tackle here. Maybe replace Trent Williams one day. Who knows? And just maintain their strength, which is the offensive line. Don't want to lose that. There's a lot of teams I would kill for a good defensive or offensive line that the Niners have. So build on the strengths. Keep players in the pipeline. And work them up like Tyler Guyton. And one day he can replace Trent Williams and they won't skip a beat,
Yeah. He's definitely got some really good traits, really good athlete. He's definitely developmental. So I kind of like him going to a place where he can go and sit in an offensive line room that has Trent Williams. I think he just needs to develop a little bit, but I think that's could be I'm not the biggest Tyler Guyton fan for that kind of reason. I feel like he really has to go to the right spot. But I think this would be one of the best spots for him to go.
Yeah, like you said, I believe a lot in
investment that would work out.
Correct. I believe a lot in the development of players, and I follow hockey and basketball, and I feel like a lot of hockey is allowing these players to develop over time. And football, you don't see that very much, but this is a rare example where you have a player who's kind of raw, and he could sit behind a veteran, learn a lot, and grow in aspects of the game that you don't see on the field before he even gets out there necessarily. Obviously, they're going to want him starting day one. He's a first-round pick, but he could learn a lot from this, like you said, from this veteran room. And I think if he goes somewhere else, he might not be as productive just because of the situation he's in and his ability to develop in this system with these players, with Kyle Shanahan and all these different schemes. It's going to be a lot for him at first, but I think that he's going to fit in well and might take some time, but I think this is going to be a good pick.
Yeah, I think there's a legit chance that a team falls in love with him and he goes like 10 picks earlier to like the Dolphins or something like that. And that would probably be one of the picks in the first round that I like slam if that happens. Be like, I don't think that's a good pick. Like he's got to go somewhere where he can really sit and develop. And expecting him to do that right away.
Yeah.
So,
that would be interesting.
I like the landing spot at least.
Yeah, I do too. I really do too. Lastly, I don't know. I kind of had some fun with this one. It's the Chiefs. Chiefs do Chiefs things. I am taking a nice little slot receiver out of Florida, Ricky Pearsall. Um, he is he. If you want to define flash, go look up Ricky Pearsall. He is
Flash.
just he is flash. He's just flash. He is just an incredible talent. He reminds me so much of Julian Edelman, so much. And why you got a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes? He can make this guy a 1,500-yard receiver, and who knows? I mean, this guy has the ability to return kicks. He's a special teamer. We saw him do that at Florida, returning punts. He can do it all. He's just a very skilled player. We could see him almost as like a Swiss Army knife, running the ball in this type of offense. Great hands, great speed out of the slot. They need help at receiver. I still think that they won the damn Super Bowl last year, and I still think they need help at receiver. I thought they were going to take a big swing in free agency this year, or maybe a trade. They did not. I think they have no
And
choice
Hollywood
but to
Brown.
take. What's that?
They signed Hollywood Brown
I've never been the biggest Hollywood Brown
for
fan.
a year. I think he'll be good in Kansas City.
I
But
think he'll be good in Kansas City. I think I could be good in Kansas City, but
yeah.
I do have them taking. I thought they were going to go big game hunting, man. I thought they were going to get like D Hop or something, or bring in like Ridley. I know there's a cap thing, but I thought they were going to make a big swing at receiver this offseason. And like you said, they brought Hollywood Brown. He's a nice complimentary piece. I do think they're going to take this kid, have him, learn for take a year, learn, and then I think he could be a year two guy that you just wow, like this kid knows the game. He's a smart kid, and this might have been a little bit of a reach, but wow, the Chiefs really turned this kid into a really good receiver and talent, doing everything.
Yeah. I don't think that's the receiver a lot of people would think would go there.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm a big Pearsall fan, so I really like him. I think a lot of people would be surprised to see Brian Thomas not in the first round. He could very well go 33rd to the Panthers,
Yeah,
34th to the Patriots.
join
So
Terrence Marshall.
yeah, there you go.
But I just think that this team always finds a way with these receivers. Rashee Rice kind of came onto the scene. Maybe Rashee Rice could be the one, Hollywood two. But throw this guy, he could play slot. He could play in the backfield. I could see. And I think I had some fun with this one. Not gonna lie. Yeah, I could have gone Brian Thomas, but I wanted the Chiefs to do something like this.
I like
And
it.
I who knows? Who knows?
I like it. All right, so I'm just gonna read it through one time. At number 1, the Bears take Caleb Williams, followed by Jaden Daniels to the Commanders. The Vikings trade up with the Patriots and take Drake May, and then the Cardinals take Marvin Harrison at 4. The Jets trade up with the Chargers to take Malik Neighbors. Rome Odunze goes 6 to the Giants. Joe Alt to the Titans at 7. At 8, the Falcons take Dallas Turner. At 9, the Broncos trade up with the Bears and take J.J. McCarthy. At 10, the Chargers traded back and took Tylize Fuanga. And then the Patriots traded back and took Olu Fashanu from Penn State. And then at 12, the Bears take Jared Verse in their trade back. Terrion Arnold goes 13th to the Raiders. Troy Fautanu from Washington goes to the Saints. Brock Bowers to the Colts at 15. Byron Murphy II from Texas goes to the Seahawks at 16. Quinyon Mitchell, corner, goes to the Jags at 17. Amarius Mims goes to the Bengals at 18. Darius Robinson goes to the Rams at 19. Graham Barton to the Steelers. Laiatu Latu to the Dolphins. At 22, the Eagles take Cooper DeJean, or Dejan, whatever you want to call him now. Nate Wiggins from Clemson goes to the Patriots at 23 in their trade back. J.C. Latham to the Cowboys. Kool-Aid McKinstry to the Packers at 25. Jerzon Newton to the Bucks at 26. DJ James, corner from Auburn, to the Cardinals at 27. A.D. Mitchell to the Bills at 28. Jackson Powers Johnson to the Lions. Chop Robinson to the Ravens. Tyler Guyton to the 49ers. And then Ricky Pearsall, wide receiver from Florida, to the Chiefs at 32.
Any last comments on my mock draft, Tim?
Any last comments? I actually really liked it. I like the way the quarterbacks shook out. I liked the trades. I think they all made a lot of sense. And I liked how you kind of had your own, like it wasn't just chalk down the board. You kind of had your own kind of surprise picks in there that kind of gets your takes off at the same time as making a mock draft. and I really, really liked it. I'm really excited for the draft. I think this draft is like insane. Like the level
Yeah.
of talent in this draft is awesome. To the
Mhm.
Another reason I'm really excited for it is that I feel like sometimes you like get into the draft and you like watch the draft on Thursday night, and then Friday you like maybe watch the first like 5, 10 picks of the second round, and then the rest you kind of just get notifications on your phone. I feel like I'm literally going to be interested in this draft, like all of Thursday, obviously, all of Friday, and then like part of Saturday when they do day three, honestly, because I have this draft is both like insanely talented and deep, and I've also I know I always put a lot of work into researching the draft, but this one even more than normal. So I am, yeah, Thursday's Christmas.
Thursday's Christmas. I see a lot of resemblance in this draft, this coming draft, and I do the 2021 draft. Not only just in
You think
terms of
the
the
quarterbacks
quarterback,
are gonna go the same way?
there's a chance. There's definitely a chance.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, they went 1, 2, 3,
No,
and
I mean
then
their
10.
careers.
That's the thing. You can have one standout, Caleb Williams, Trevor Lawrence, and just today we learned the fate of, I think other than that, the last, could be wrong, but the last first round quarterback who was on their drafted team to now leave their team.
Yeah, was.
In a span of 2, 3 years, it's crazy. But we saw great. I mean, we saw that was the draft of Jalen Waddle and Jamar Chase, and Devontae Smith, and we got a lot of good receivers in this draft. There's a lot of similarities in this draft and the 21 draft. I will be very curious to see if this draft provides more talent for the quarterback position. If these quarterbacks pan out, if they do, that would be this has the potential to be a legendary draft. So, like you
Definitely.
said, I'm excited. I'm going to be glued to the TV on Thursday, and I think that this is going to be a lot of stars in this draft, and I'm going to be paying close attention and hopefully lots of check marks on my mock draft. Hopefully, I get a lot of these picks right.
Let's hope. All right. Well, thanks for hopping on, Zach. We'll get this out to the people. And yeah, thank you guys, everybody, for watching. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment, and tell us how dumb we are. All right. Peace.